What was your I'm in danger moment? So I was walking to my school, and there's this little street with 2 lanes that leads onto the highway that you need to pass to get to my school. I usually wait till everyone has passed, since no one respects the yield. But that day, the guy in the right lane actually yielded, which was awesome. So I made my way across. Suddenly, as I passed through the right lane and entered the left lane, before my mind could process anything, my body just straight up stopped moving. I was briefly confused before I felt 2 cars barely graze both my front and backside. Apparently the guy on the right started driving again as soon as I was out of his lane, and at the same time, a guy behind him was being impatient and jumped to the left lane without stopping for me. So they both passed me at the same time, while I survived by being frozen in the minor gap between the two. Honestly, my subconscious is the only reason I'm alive today. I was on a bouncy castle at a college ball and my friend turned the pump off as a prank. My head was sealed in the deflating plastic, and I was suffocating, kicking my legs wildly trying to free myself. I had almost passed out when someone noticed and pulled me out. It would have been quite an ignominious end. When I was about 14, I chucked a teen angst tantrum and went for an angry walk in the bushland behind my house. Didn't take my phone. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. Just stormed out. It started raining pretty heavily after about 45 minutes. So I turned back to head home. But a bridge I had crossed had been washed away and the creek was rising very rapidly. I, stupidly, skidded down the embankment to see if I could cross, but didn't realize the rain had made it too slippery for me to be able to climb back up. I vividly remember standing on the little patch of rock thinking, haha, I might die. I didn't. I climbed onto a rock ledge, waited out the storm, and managed to make my way back up the embankment and return by a different route. By that point, had been gone for about 4 hours and had escaped death, only to be almost killed by my parents. When my intoxicated friend knocked over another guy's pint by accident, and then his drunken brain decided he could take on the guy. The guy was built like a brick shit house, and his friends were all huge. They were the type of guys that don't take too kindly to being challenged to a fight. We were 2 skinny 19-year-olds. Anyway, I bought brick shit house guy a replacement drink, and somehow talked him and his mates down from flattening the pair of us. Then drug my idiot friend out of the pub and got him home. Some people should moderate their drinking. By the way, the rule is, you spill another man's pint you immediately apologize, and by the next round. Actually saw the guy again a few days later, small town, and he was cool about it. Went to a neighbor's house to help him decide on how to rearrange his living room furniture. First thing he did was start playing music on his TV at full volume, then went to his back bedroom and asked me to come look at a chair in there. I dipped. Private pilot story. Just on a return flight with a few mates back to local aerodrome. Looked down at rudder pedals and noticed the side of my shoe was basically starting to melt. First moment of realization that the engine was indeed on fire. I'm in danger. The day I moved into a new apartment and noticed pry marks on the door. Couple of days ago I was working up a tree. Arborist. The tree in question was a black locust that was dying at the top. However, the base looked fine. I set about slowly dismantling the tree, which was an awkward task because I couldn't get as high up onto the tree as I wanted due to the decay, and it was growing over a building, so I couldn't just let bits free fall. After an hour or so of working, I heard a snap about a meter above me while I was about 13 meters up into the crown. I looked up to see a long branch above me that was growing into the crown of another tree had snapped. I realized instantly that this meant that the base of the tree I was in had failed and I was going to go down with it if I didn't get out. Before I could even react, the tree was free falling down towards the outbuilding that I had been working so hard to avoid. Time slowed down and I could see my colleagues standing in the woodland watching me with pure fear on their faces. After that, it's hard to put my thoughts into words, but I remember looking down at where the tree was going to land and thinking that it's weird because this second I'm completely lucid, but a second from not I will probably be unconscious. Possible never to regain consciousness. Yet I didn't feel any panic, just knowing that I'm in extreme danger. All I could do was grab the nearest branch and plant me feet on another one and hope to God that I didn't end up under any part of the tree. After what seemed like forever, the tree came down onto the roof of the outbuilding. I had probably traveled 10 meters vertically and about the same laterally. The large limbs of the tree that were previously to my right but were now above me didn't snap and crush me like I was sure they would. I managed to hold on to my branch and stayed roughly in the middle of the tree. I was free from injury other than a twisted ankle and a twinge in my wrist from holding on tight as the tree smashed down. I don't know how I didn't get seriously ducked up by that tree, and I don't know why it failed on me. But I will never forget that, knowing that I'm in danger, falling with tons of wood, and there's nothing I can do about it. My third year fighting forest fire, I was upgraded to pump truck operator for a mop-up crew. After a section of the fire was deemed extinguished, they send in mop-up to make sure it's actually really out. I drove a giant pickup truck with a huge tank of soapy water and filled up portable water bags for the mop-up fighters. On my way back to base, I had a bit of water left when I saw plumes of white smoke. You're urged to extinguish all smoke because no one wants a dead fire to come back to life. There's a fallen tree next to a bunch of bushes and another half fallen tree, and the half fallen tree is spewing hot coals every couple seconds with a loud pop. Each pop of hot coals makes the other wood products take off. The fire was at risk of starting over again. Right here lol. I had nothing but a piss and bladder bag. I bounded down to the pump truck, grabbed a hose, ran it up, bounded down, turned the hose on, ran up, and began attacking the situation. As I'm chasing down the heat and fuel source, I realize I'm surrounded by flammable objects. Soon after, I'm surrounded by giant flames. Alone. I was literally screaming and laughing as I hacked and sprayed away at the rising flames. I got it tamed down after soaking and chopping killed the main source. I also sprayed the duck out of branches, so soapy water was dripping everywhere. I had just finished rolling the hose back up and was catching my breath when these Marines came running up the hill. They were sent to investigate the smoky mess I'd been dealing with. Being high-fived by a Marine is a good feeling. When I was a teenager, my mother was in the hospital and I overheard my abusive stepfather answering the door at 2 AM and talking about getting rid of them tomorrow night and his gun. I was 100% sure he was going to kill my sister and me. Falling off a bridge into water right next to a stingray with dead sharks drifting by. I live in Australia. When I was about 12, a friend from our local church drove me and his sons to go swimming at a creek near where we lived. I didn't know how to swim yet, but he assured me that I'd be fine since there wasn't much water and it could be a good learning experience. So far, pretty normal stuff. It gets weird though. The water was much deeper than expected and he did nothing to help on several occasions when I almost drowned. I was supposed to stay at his house overnight, but wasn't feeling very good after breathing in water a few times. Plus, something obviously didn't feel right. He was mumbling to himself while he put his shoes back on after swimming. Good thing I stayed home. Turns out he was off his medication. My family didn't know that he had previously killed a person during a hunting trip when he was in his early teens. The night I decided to go home, he went off the rails. He believed the world was going to end and tried to kill his entire family. When my family went to church that Sunday, we didn't see his family. The pastor told us what happened. They all had miraculously survived, but he was now in lockup for his serious issues. TLDR, almost drowned, almost killed. Family friend was a murderer and we didn't know it. Going home from a party in a shared Uber with some friends, I mistook the street for another one and ended up further away from my apartment than I thought. I put the GPS on and of course it makes you take some back alley. At one I see some movement near a car and there is a guy looking at me. I pass him, try to call my friend because he was looking weird. BTW, I did the wrong number and someone got a voicemail from me sounding totally terrified and spitting nonsense. Close bracket. I walk faster and look back. He is dunking behind another car and clearly switched from his original place, and he has a small knife in his hand. I bolted from here, ran as fast as possible with adrenaline, and stopped after finding a busy street. But when I saw the knife, that's when it went oh shit. Attention all guests. A gorilla has escaped its enclosure. Please make your way to the nearest exit. Me realizing I'm in the primate area. Drunk in Amsterdam wheeling around a guy in a wheelchair we met. We were like 18, the guy in the wheelchair 30 something. Well, we ended up in a dark alley and 5 tall sketchy dudes surrounded us. But I was too drunk and happy to realize it was a threat and chatted happily with them. They started asking for money and I was like haha no. All of a sudden this queen of a woman stepped inside the circle and told the guys duck off. There with me. Had a nice chat with her. Then we wheeled the guy in a wheelchair home. The next day I realized she saved our butts. I drove through a notorious neighborhood back in my hometown and the engine had become entirely cut off. Apparently my dumb bus had it on 3rd gear for a couple of hours. I got robbed that night, but thankfully there was no carjacking. Mom, 14 missed calls. That means the same thing in a different way when you're older and live out of state from your parents. Mom, 14 missed calls. Oh shit. I'm dead. Apostrophe. Mom, 14 missed calls. Oh shit. Grandma's dead. Apostrophe. I guess you haven't reached the age where it's oh shit. Dad's dead. I was on holiday and had left my hotel to walk to Livingstone National Park in Zimbabwe. My friends had visited earlier in the day and wanted to stay by the pool, so I figured I'd walk over by myself. Since it wasn't a particularly long trip, the easiest route from my hotel was following a small path between some bushes and trees. I'd been down the path before, but this time there were families of baboons walking down this path and no other person. I cracked on anyway, figuring that as long as I wasn't waving food around or getting too close I'd be fine. Apparently I must have done the latter and unintentionally stepped too close to one of their young, because one of the full-grown adult baboons jumped out in front of me and started howling at me, baring its teeth. Because of the noise it was making, it attracted the attention of all the other baboons, and 2 other full-grown adults soon joined the first in howling and showing serious aggression all of a couple of yards in front of me and to my side. I had no idea if there were more behind me, but my instinct in the situation was to hold up my hands to show empty palms, stand tall, broad and start stepping backwards and away slowly. Thankfully it worked and they eventually turned away and carried on. But for a short while my mind was having flashes of being torn apart by 3 baboons. I later found out their bites can break human bones. So I'm pretty lucky that my instinct in the situation was the correct one. The moment I arrived for work at a bank, stepped inside and had a stranger say happy April Fools and put a revolver against my temple. 2 robbers, both with revolvers and rifles, had made their way inside before opening and had bailed up the manager as he arrived and then the staff as they arrived. They were talking to a 3rd accomplice on walkie-talkies. I was told to lie with my face down on the ground, arms on my back and legs together. One robber was going down the line hog-tying staff with cable ties, while the other had the manager and supervisors unlocking safes. All along there were threats not to look or move, or you would be shot. The robber had just tied my wrists together, with the pistol lying in the ground between my legs, when I heard a commotion. A staff member had managed to exit while they were distracted, and the robbers followed him and left the bank quickly. They got nothing. All in all I was there, with 15 other staff, for about 35 minutes. When I was in year 5, I ate this cake which had one of those little bits of weird edible paper on them. In about 2 hours I felt my windpipe slowly shrinking, so I took some antihistamine tablets, but it was still getting worse. About half an hour after that, we called the hospital and I lay down while I was getting injected with my EpiPen. The ambulance came just when I was literally thinking I'm going to ducking die. They have me oxygen for about half an hour straight and took me to hospital. It was about midnight and I remember watching a rugby game on TV in the waiting room. I left the hospital at about 2 AM. Basically I almost died from a trace of peanuts. But the worst part was that I still had school the next day. I was living with a man I'd known for a month, Nick be like that, and one day I left without saying anything to him. I was at McDonald's, and he texted and asked if I was at Papa John's, which was across from McDonald's. Thought oh creepy, then I got home and we had a conversation where he started talking about something I'd just texted my girlfriend about. And it was a topic we had never discussed before. Red flag. I'm in danger. All the times he seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Had food for me when I hadn't eaten, hit me all at once. Found out dude had spyware on my phone and was watching my every move. Getting home from school with a SWAT team prepping to breach my apartment building. Slept at my sister's that night. What the hell was going on at your apartment building though? A guy shot somebody then ran back to the apartment to hide. Please subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit universe.